Good morning, it's Q here, and I'm back with another video this morning for you. This message that I want to give, I have no doubt this morning that God is speaking. He's speaking something so heavy, and I'm constantly hearing a specific word. I'm constantly hearing a specific thing, not only throughout the week, but this morning in particular. And there was no doubt in my mind that I needed to come and share this. Not only is God speaking to me, but I believe that this message will help many people. All right. So what is it that God is speaking to me this morning? Well, God keeps speaking this particular word, death. D-E-A-F. Death. All right. And if I go into the definition of what this word means, let's do that. Let's look at what this word means. Give me just a moment. It means lacking the power of hearing or having impaired hearing, unwilling or unable to hear or pay attention to something. And when God gave me this throughout the week, I would see specific times as I usually would tell others. And throughout the week, I kept seeing 7:33. And as I was going to look this up, I kept getting this same scripture. However, yet I was just almost like surpassing it. All right. And I want to read that scripture to you and give you an idea of what it reads. All right. So this is Mark chapter 7, verse 33. And this comes from the NLT. All right. And it reads, Jesus led him away from the crowd so they could be alone. He put his fingers into the man's ears. Then spitting on his own fingers, he touched the man's tongue. I had seen this so much. I had come across this so long ago. But this past week and then today, after I kept hearing this message about death, I got this particular verse. I decided then to go listen further. Let's get more, because you can't just take a piece of a scripture without getting the whole entirety of it, all right? And when I went in, the full verse comes from Mark chapter 7, 31 through 37. And I'm sorry I don't have this already pulled up, but I want to go and pull up that 31 through 37, because I was listening to it on audio as I was driving, right? And what I got more from it was even more interesting for me. So I want to share this. And it reads, so this here is when Jesus, he heals a deaf man, all right? And it reads, Jesus left Tyre and went up to Sidon before going back to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the 10 towns. A deaf man with a speech impediment was brought to him, and the people begged Jesus to lay his hands on the man to heal him. Jesus led him away from the crowd so they could be alone. He put his fingers into the man's ears. Then spitting on his own fingers, he touched the man's tongue. Looking up to heaven, he sighed and said, I don't know how to pronounce this word, so I don't want to butcher it too bad, but it's like Ephphatha, which means be open. Instantly, the man could hear perfectly, and his tongue was free so he could speak plainly. Jesus told the crowd not to tell anyone, but the more he told them not to, the more they spread the news. They were completely amazed and said again and again, everything he does is wonderful. He even makes the deaf to hear and gives speech to those who cannot speak. All right, as I said, this verse had been coming up so much, but I had not gone to see the entirety. I had in the past, but not this particular week. I was like, God, what are you saying? I'm confused here. What are you saying to me? Well, this morning, God spoke so much. He spoke so much back to back. And I was driving, and I get on a morning call usually. So I'm on this morning call. I already have my post that I was going to post for today prepared, and it was speaking. My post that I was going to post, it says, let me read that so you can get the idea. Sorry, I just got so many notes, but how it connects is just, I love how God speaks, man. I love how God speaks. All right, so the post that I had prepared, which I had wrote last night. So if I hear things, I just write them down. And this is what I had heard, so I wrote it down. And it was, every message from a person you frequently listen to may not always be a message for you personally. You may be headed to listen to someone and think God has went silent on you, when maybe on that day the message was actually meant to come through your child. Don't be deaf. Don't be deaf because you are expecting a message from a certain someone. Again, the word deaf stood out. I wrote this last night. This morning I get on my morning call and God has this woman and she's speaking. I have to share this message. And she's speaking. And as she's speaking about us having deaf ears. And it catches my attention. So I just screams, I just say Jesus, because I just know when God is speaking. And as she's ministering this word, she's even speaking about how at times we may have itching ears. How somebody can say something that God is trying to get across to us, but because we don't want to hear it, or because it doesn't feel good, we need to go search out a word that feels good. All right, and now we're surpassing his message, and he's trying to get a message across to us because he's trying to assist us in our journeys, in our life. He's trying to grow us up. All right. She also mentions that as she's at some grocery store, I believe she was saying, she was weighing some fruit. She was weighing some fruit. And the weigher that she was weighing it on, right? It had read, I wrote this down because it caught my attention. It read, error to communicate with the master. It read, error to communicate with the master. And when I heard that, I'm like, wow, God is saying that there's error to communicate with him. Because not only when we communicate, when we speak something, we have to listen. But are we being deaf? Are we being deaf to it? All right. God kept giving me this verse. All right. So I get off the phone. I get off of that call and I'm driving. Now this blows my mind. I'm driving and I wanted to let that settle in my spirit, right? I wanted to let that settle in my spirit. And that's when I noticed that this particular verse from Mark 7:33, it comes up again. So that's when I let the audio play. I look over and I see a gas station, and the sign, not where it has the gas prices, but sometimes the building itself, it has signs that may illuminate with words across it. There were words that went across this sign, and it said, Deaf Pump 21. All right. I know that for this, when I looked up what does deaf mean on a gas station sign, it meant something about diesel. But the point that if you pronounce that thing, it was still deaf. God was saying, I am speaking because there are many deaf ears. All right. Sometimes we're coming or we're steady telling God, I don't understand, God. I don't get it. What are you saying? Or you think God has went silent on you, when actually, just as the woman said in that meeting this morning, sometimes you may have itching ears. You may be searching for a message from a particular person that you're constantly or frequently going to, when he may have been trying to send that message through someone else. When he may have, just like I wrote in that post, been trying to send a message on this particular day through your child. When he may at this moment be trying to get your attention to say, I'm speaking to you. So just like he did for me, I know the time that you're going to get on the call, I'll place a message for you to hear it, for you to get your attention, so that you'll see that, hey, I'm trying to get a message across to you. Are you being deaf to what I have been speaking to you? I hear you when you say that you don't understand. I hear you when you say, I don't know what to do. But I am telling you, the problem is because I'm giving you instructions, and yet you're being deaf to them. And yet you're being deaf to them. I never like to say a thing without trying to come with a solution. Right? How can we now change this so that we can fix this? If God is saying, I'm being deaf to something, or you're being deaf to something, how do we fix that? I spoke recently on a video. We have to go into our time of just being quiet. Communication goes both ways. We cannot speak to God without trying to listen, without trying to sit quietly. Some of us work. Some of us are busy. This woman spoke this as well. Some of us work. Some of us, you may be busy throughout your day. I'm just always on the go. I may not have time to just always just go and do what you have time for if you're not that busy as I am. You don't work the type of job I work. He said, well, even on your job, be quiet. Maybe you're taking that time out to talk to that coworker a little too much. Be quiet. Are we being deaf to God? When God, I'm so sorry about that, y'all. The phone died. But are we being deaf to God when God speaks? Right? What has God said to you your past week, this past month, or months that you've been going, just doing whatever it is you want to do? You know He's told you to do something, and yet you still haven't. Being deaf to God includes not being obedient to when He tells us to do such a thing. Has God told you to write that book yet? And you haven't. You're complaining about income. Has God told you to switch something up on the way you sell a thing because He's trying to give you the financial wisdom on how to get that money? Come on. Because see, one thing about my God, he shares. One thing about my God, He gives. One thing about my God, He gives me wisdom to do a thing. Are you listening? You're present, you hear Him. But being deaf also includes not listening. Are you listening? You can't beat the message. Somewhere in here there was a message. There was a message for someone to take. Did you receive it? Did you hear it? Are you listening? Will you now take it and be obedient? Because being obedient and doing what it is He's saying includes listening and hearing. My brothers, my sisters, I love you guys. Be blessed.